It's that time of year again. See, here at JayTheMovieGuy, we, meaning I, love Halloween and want to get into the spirit. So I'm actually putting together an actual Halloween special. But I'm going to do it in the most stupid way possible. You'd think with this kind of thing I'd want to put a spotlight on the best or most underrated horror movies out there. Nope, let's just do some random ones that nobody's heard of. So I've looked for random movie generators, and what better time than now to take what I found for a spin for the first time. I'm going to use this to find 2 random horror movies and yeah, I'm just going to watch them. No matter how bad or gruesome or extreme or if I just don't want to watch it. It's like Russian roulette. I could get a horror masterpiece or one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, basically I just specify horror and then put every service that I have as of now, every TV channel website, and everything from the drop down menu that I'm pretty sure is free, and here we go. Alright, and we start off with the classic, Bride of Frankenstein, streaming on Vudu. This will be the second time I'm watching it. Wait, this actually costs money? It was on the drop-down menu under streaming and not rent by whatever. I thought that meant it was free. Why would you put it with all the free and paid services if it's not free or paid for? Fine, I'll just remove Vudu and do this again. Alright, Halloween Kills, streaming on Max. Also the second time I've watched it. And now to... oh wait, it's not there anymore. So, on to the next one. And it's Bird Box. 3 shots and they're all something I've seen before. I was expecting a lot more obscure stuff I've never heard of. Is it? Yes, it is still streaming on Netflix, since it's one of their originals and all that. I mean, seriously, how could they lose one of their own moving on. So I like this one probably more than most people, but this wasn't exactly a movie that I ever had any real desire to watch again. But there are definitely worse ones. Now let's get into this. Bird Box is based on the debut novel from Josh Malerman. In 2013, the film rights to it were bought by Universal Pictures before the book even hit shelves. To write the script, they hired Eric Heiserer, writer of the Nightmare on Elm Street remake and Final Destination 5, whose resume would soon become much more impressive once she wrote the Oscar-nominated screenplay for Arrival years later. To direct, they hired Andy Muschietti, director of Mama and future director of the It movies. According to IMDB, both Sandra Bullock and the woman who would actually direct this originally turned the project down. However, there doesn't appear to be much that happened with that for a few years, until 2017 when one of the producers, Scott Stuber, was made head of feature film production for Netflix, and he decided to take this project to them instead. And he also announced that it would star Sandra Bullock and John Malkovich. They'd later announced even more recognizable names like Sarah Paulson, Lil Ray Howery, and Machine Gun Kelly. And in the initial announcement, he said that it would instead be directed by Suzanne Bier, the mind behind In a Better World, After the Wedding, and The Night Manager. Cast members would say that John Malkovich had a weird sort of connection with the birds on set, where if he told them to move their feet, they would actually do it for him. Sandra Bullock estimates that she spent half the film shoot blindfolded, and she refused to cut holes in the blindfold, which led to her running into the camera a couple times. Suzanne Bier claims that she lost sleep worrying about Bullock's safety. The producers wanted the monsters to be seen at some point. They were designed as green men with baby faces, and there was even a scene shot with them in mind. However, the idea was scrapped because they thought it would look too goofy. Having seen It Chapter 2, I'd say that if Muschietti was still directing, there'd be like a 50-50 chance it would still be in the movie. Trent Reznor and Atticus Rose of Nine Inch Nails fame were hired to make the score for this film. However, Reznor would later criticize how low the mixing of his score was in the movie and would call the experience, quote, a fucking waste of time. Also, the original cut of the movie had footage from a major real-life deadly train crash in Lac-Mégantic, Quebec.
What the fuck?
I don't know where it was in the movie, but Netflix purchased it from a stock footage vendor, presumably not knowing that people actually died. Many survivors of the crash demanded that the footage be taken out, but Netflix refused, at least for some time. Eventually, it was replaced with an outtake from a cancelled series. The offending footage was also used by Netflix in an episode of the show Travelers, but was also taken out later. It was released in late 2018 and was accused by some of trying to cash in on the success of A Quiet Place earlier that same year. However, the book was both written and auctioned for a movie years before that one came out. Now on to the review. As you may know by now, this is a post-apocalyptic thriller where the world has been taken over by creatures where if you see them you either kill yourself or you go crazy and start trying to get everybody around you to look at them. Yeah, it looks like that last part just happens at random, but whatever. Nobody wants horror movies to explain the horrors. Those always suck. But anyway, like I said earlier, I like this movie more than most people probably did. It got decent reviews, but still pretty mixed. But I thought it was above average, and I still think it's above average. However, it wasn't really as good on a rewatch. I mean, I can't really think of anything wrong with it that I didn't notice before, but it just isn't as interesting when you know what's going to happen. It has a heavy focus on the characters and a complex plot. The characters are okay. I didn't feel for them as much as they probably wanted me to, but they aren't too flat. You can definitely tell they try to flesh them out, and Bullock has a pretty interesting arc. But where it really excels is in its story and the hints we get at lore. It's a very ambitious movie. Maybe too ambitious for just a movie, but it's still always interesting, seeing how these people try to survive in the world around them. And there are a few tense moments, like a scene where the people are in a car with the windows plastered over and they hear the creature outside. The filmmakers were smart to not let the creature be seen even if it didn't look stupid. I can't imagine that kind of thing would still work as well if we knew what they looked like later. Also, because if they showed the baby thing, we'd all have killed ourselves upon seeing it. And the acting is good. They've gotten together a bunch of talented people, and Machine Gun Kelly, and they all treat it like any other movie that snobs would call more highbrow. It does have its setbacks though, like the 5-year time jump in the last half hour or so. Even with the alternation between that time and the time at the beginning, it could still feel a little jarring. I think it could have benefited from keeping the alternating timelines a little longer. Then maybe the climax of the older timelines could mesh well with the climax of the later timeline as well. Honestly, that old climax was a little more thrilling than the new one. Come to think of it, the whole old timeline was the more interesting one. But despite all of that, I still think it's a really good horror movie. And it was definitely a successful one too. Despite the mixed reviews, it was a huge success commercially, becoming the most watched Netflix movie ever within 28 days of release. And it would maintain that record until it was beaten by Red Notice in 2021. Analysts have estimated that if it was given a traditional theatrical release, it would have made $98 million. Oh yeah, and in the midst of all that, we got the Bird Box Challenge. It all started when Netflix Australia decided to partner with 4 Twitch streamers for a promotional stunt where they would play popular video games while blindfolded. And it was widely mimicked by the internet, for other things, ordinary activities, things that got some people hurt. And then Netflix made a statement condemning it all. Please, people, stop promoting our movie. But even with that, the following January, a 17-year-old girl in Utah decided to do this challenge while... You gotta be kidding me.
What the fuck?
So obviously she crashed her car into oncoming traffic. The few sources I looked at don't say anything about anybody being seriously hurt, so I'll just presume she narrowly avoided a Darwin Award. The incident caused the state's police department to condemn the challenge too. And the challenge altogether made YouTube update their community guidelines and warn influencers, don't put children in dangerous situations, you dumb fuck. And unsurprisingly, Netflix would later make a sequel. More surprisingly, they made a sequel in Spanish, the first in a series of spin-offs set in various parts of the world, filmed in their own language. An idea which I personally love, something too high concept for those cynical bastards at Netflix. And so, Bird Box Barcelona was released earlier this year to even more mixed reviews, but I personally liked it more than I thought I would. That seems to be a theme with these movies. I liked them more than everybody else, but not really enough to rewatch. But this one went into a surprisingly interesting direction early on, focusing on... And I'd even say that the climax of this movie is more intense than most of the original movie. Wasn't a big fan of the sequel bit at the end though. But back to the original. It wasn't as enjoyable the second time around, but I still definitely appreciate it as an above-average thriller with A-list talent. It's among the better Netflix movies I've seen. Regardless of how you feel about it, it does at least lack the cynicism of their other movies. This is not a cut-and-paste horror movie that could have been written by a bot. And making all the sequels in another language isn't a cynical idea either. Honestly, there are far worse Netflix movies than this one to get huge. Okay, now on to the next.
And now a feature program.
Okay, now on to the next one. And it's... Wait, not only have I already seen that trilogy, but I've already made a video about it. Okay, I've decided that except for the whole Wikipedia information thing, there's probably not much more I can add to that, so let's go again. An American Werewolf in London. Well, I've seen it, but not in a long time, so that's good. Still, I was hoping for something a little more out there. I gave this site a test ride before doing this and got a few more out of the box ones, like crappy horror sequels and stuff I've never heard of. Even if I hadn't seen everything that's come up, all of these except for Halloween Kills have been pretty basic. And even Halloween Kills is a little basic considering how recent it was. But whatever, let's get into this new one. An American Werewolf in London. A classic. Streaming on the Roku channel. Wait, that's not free either? But the Roku channel is supposed to be a free service. That's how I was able to see the Weird Al movie. You know what, because of this I'm going to consider Vudu again. Since for both of these, at least some of their movies are free. You know what, I'm actually relieved. This is a good thing. Now I have more of a chance for something wild and crazy. And here we... reroll. Annabelle Creation. On Hulu. Or not. Leprechaun in the Hood. Now that's what I'm talking about. Something weird that can make this video fun. I might have to watch some of the other Leprechaun films first, but I can do that too if they're available. Although this one's on Vudu. Please let this one be... damn it. Fine. Again. What the hell? Deton. I've already done a video on that too. The Disappointments Room. I don't know what that is. Perfect. But it's also on Vudu, so is it... Nope. Don't worry, darling. On Max. And it's still there. Well, it looks like this video is just a couple of very recent mainstream horror movies that I've seen before. Great. Well, at least I finally got something. This episode's going to make me look way too nice because both of these movies got mixed reviews, but I still think they're both above average. Now on to the background, which a lot of this was very public drama, so unless you're watching this years from now, you probably already know a lot of this stuff. Before the shit hit the fan, actress Olivia Wilde made her directorial debut in 2019 with the independent R-rated teen comedy Booksmart based on a script that was taken from the Blacklist. And it became a critical success, and studios took notice, enough that there was a bidding war for her next movie between 18 studios, one that was won by New Line Cinema. For this project, she decided to go for another Blacklist screenplay written by Carrie and Shane Van Dyke. Booksmart writer Katie Silberman was hired to do rewrites. The movie's villain was inspired by right-wing figurehead Jordan Peterson. Like Bird Box, it got a good cast for a horror movie, with the initial cast including Florence Pugh, Shia LaBeouf, Dakota Johnson, Chris Pine, Nick Kroll, and of course Wilde herself as the star. Until she and Pugh decided to switch roles. Wikipedia says she made this decision because she wanted a younger couple, but IMDB says it was simply because she was impressed with her performance in Midsommar. Dakota Johnson left because of scheduling conflicts with her movie The Lost Daughter and was replaced with Kiki Lane. And of course, the casting news you've all been waiting for, Shia LaBeouf was replaced by Harry Styles. Olivia Wilde claimed that this was because of his poor behavior on set. However, he would later deny this, saying that he quit on his own terms despite the people on board begging him to stay. Which, yeah, of course that's what somebody who got fired for bad behavior would do. But wait, he has proof. He showed Variety some leaked texts and a video of Wilde telling him not to leave. Even after this leak, Wilde still sticks to her story. Also, there were rumors about her not getting along with Florence Pugh, which everybody on set denied. And while the Shia LaBeouf thing does not make her look good, I'm not sure if I believe this scandal, seeing as how nothing much came from it other than rumors. They might have fought, but I'm just going to consider the whole LaBeouf feud to be the real controversy, despite the other one getting the most publicity. Oh, and while introducing the trailer for this movie at CinemaCon 2022, Wilde was interrupted by somebody giving her divorce papers from Jason Sudeikis. Jason would later say that he had no idea this was going to happen like that. It was released in September of 2022 in a whirlwind of drama. Unfortunately, we'll never know how much this publicity hurt or helped the movie, but it did make a profit. But enough about the drama, on to the movie. A statement I'm pretty sure everybody interested in the movie at the time thought. It takes place in what's seemingly an isolated suburb in the 1950s, where the wives take care of the house while the husbands go to work via driving through a roadless desert. And Florence Pugh notices that things are off in this seemingly ideal suburban utopia, in a sort of question reality type of way. The production design and cinematography are great. It all helps to capture the fake perfection of this place. There are occasional points where it reminded me a little of the world of another recent highly publicized female-directed feminist movie, Barbie, for just how plastic its beauty is. It's Barbie, but with reverse gender roles. But it's obviously more unsettling than Barbie. Its scares are more surreal and make the audience question the reality of it all. Weird, unexplained, almost Lynchian stuff, including random shots and sequences that don't even make sense until the end. Some of the best parts are the more subtle ones, like this one scene where Pugh is in the bathtub and at the end of the scene she goes under the water, but after she goes, for a split second we see her reflection in a nearby mirror where her head is still above the water. The twist isn't the most unexpected thing, but it works very well to promote its themes and update them for modern audiences. It's full of social commentary about gender roles and the fakeness of the American dream. I once saw somebody refer to it as Get Out for White Women. I don't remember where I saw that. It could have been a Letterboxd review. but it's a pretty good description. Maybe a little too much. The main complaint many people have is that it's derivative of other movies including Get Out and The Stepford Wives. I can't really speak much for the second one, even though it's probably the main one because I haven't seen it yet. It's on my to-be watch list. I'm hoping to get to it soon, but I know enough to see that. For Get Out, it's just kind of inspired in the sense that it's a thriller with social commentary about the experience of an oppressed people. For Stepford Wives, the influence appears to be a little more blatant. But I can also choose to see it as simply an updated version of the Stepford Wives. The Stepford Wives for the Get Out era, or the Stepford Wives for the Jordan Peterson era, or simply just the Stepford Wives for the new era with updated technology. Also, while this movie was being promoted, Olivia Wilde used its sex scenes as a selling point, saying that they were progressive in the sense that they focused on the woman's pleasure. And while I guess that would be admirable in any other context, actually it might be admirable in this context too, but it also kind of feels a little out of place with the world and themes. I like what she's going for, but the whole point of this movie is that the women aren't as happy as they seem. This is supposed to be a society that doesn't care about women. Why focus on those same people pleasing them? I mean, considering what we learn about Harry Styles' character later, it seems kind of weird how the first sex scene in the movie involves him going down on Pug, a position that gives pleasure to the girl but not himself. But whatever, that's kind of a nitpick. This movie has definitely, undeniably been overshadowed by the behind-the-scenes drama, but it's still an interesting watch, even if I'm not sure how I feel about the people involved. I don't know if it'll hold up once I finally see the Stepford Wives, but for now I consider it above average. I also didn't really have much interest in rewatching it, but it has a somewhat surprising amount of rewatchability. Not a lot, but enough. It's a nice thriller and I guess a decent allegory for women in society. So, which do I prefer? I don't know whether or not this is going to be controversial, but I'm going with Don't Worry Darling. I felt like it was more rewatchable. They both had their strengths, but I gotta go with the creepy surrealism of this one over the more grounded, plot-based approach of Bird Box. But then again, that could change once I see the Stepford Wives. Really, the big loser here is me. None of these are what I would consider Halloween movies, and this Halloween special isn't as interesting as I'd hoped. And I was actually looking forward to doing more of the random movie thing. When I was looking for a random movie site, I was thinking maybe it could have been the new IMDB Bottom 100 series from my channel. But the Bottom 100 thing probably leads to more interesting stuff than this. Maybe next time I do something like this, I could just limit my options to Tubi. I mean, that has a lot of weird stuff on it, and I know everything on there is free. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. Maybe I'll get the Stepford Wives. But whatever, this was an experiment that got me to revisit some cool horror, even if I was a little disappointed in the selection and how many times I had to roll again. Either way, happy Halloween.